Scott's Menswear in Stoke. Is that a classic lens in your podcast pocket?
Oh, 6 syllables.
No, it wasn't.
The last line, in your podcast pocket.
What? No, in was the last syllable of the middle. Your podcast pocket.
You did enjambement in a haiku.
Yeah, I did.
That's
whatever you just said.
A jambalaya, I think.
Is that like French Canadian for jambalaya?
No. That's in poetry. That's
Okay.
in poetry when you've got one line just bleed into the next with no punctuation.
Well, yeah, I just did that.
From Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 87. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson, Perry G, and Graeme Jago. Hello. Hello, Johnny.
Good morning, all. Wow, this is off to a great start already.
It is. And hello, Perry.
Hello.
And hello, Graeme.
Hello, gentlemen. It is a delight to be back with you all. Actually, inside this time, so that's nice.
It is. Right. So, yes, that was a slightly unusual start to the show. We had planned that meticulously for the 30 seconds on the run up to the start of the recording there, and it can mean nothing else other than this is the episode where we're going to give a Konica Hexanon 40mm 1.8 to the, in quotes, best haiku that's been sent into us, and we have a world-renowned reader and expert on haikus with us, as you would know from about 2 weeks ago, where Graeme helped us launch this competition. So yeah, we're quite honoured to have you come back to us, Graeme.
The honour is all mine. I'm really happy to bring my haiku expertise back and to use it. It doesn't get enough exercise on the Sunny16 podcast, surprisingly.
Well, actually, on that note, there have actually been some haikus appearing on your show as well, haven't you, of varying quality?
No, they've all been of the same quality. Crap. I think we need to say a particular thank you to two of your listeners who have inflicted their haikus on us. Matt Jones over in Thailand, who definitely needs somebody to explain to him what a haiku is, and Paul Friday, who desperately needs somebody to explain to him that he's suffering from haiku diarrhea. But yeah, we've suffered bleed from your podcast. So thank you.
I don't like the sound of bleed after diarrhea there. Okay. So on that note, which has probably set the tone for the show, we're going to read some haikus out during the course of the show. We're not going to inflict all of the haikus on you in one go, and I think this will be a good time to start off with the opening batch of haikus. And actually, this is something we haven't actually worked out how these haikus are going to be judged, so we're just going to let Graeme decide which is the best.
I was going to go by the most number of syllables in them. Oh, hang on, that's got a flaw now. We'll figure the judging part out at the end. Okay, so you want me to read some of these, do you? Are we going to take it into us? I'm going to start off anyway. Yeah. So this first one is from Peter Cocciani. Let's go with that. That sounds nice. Peter writes in, "Hey, Simon, Johnny, and Perry. My haiku. I think it relates well to both the lens, Perry's use of it, and cars. Here we go. Hexanon for free. Use it. Then give it away. Be like Carl Havens." That's pretty good. It's a good start.
It is. We like that one. Thank you for that one, Peter.
Okay, somebody else can take this next one from Bernard. Don't all leap in at once.
Okay, I'll go with that one. So I rarely read anything out on this show. This is from Bernard Sperling, or Bernard. "Dear Classic Lenses Podcast crew, here is my haiku. Cold break of the day, an old flat Konica sings, beyond the Leica. Toodaloo, Bernard."
I also quite like that one. I'm quite impressed with your listeners' haikus. Okay, Perry, I've decided nobody's in charge, so I am. Perry, because you've been quiet, you get to read Matt Jones's, the aforementioned Matt Jones's haiku.
Well, I'm sitting here actually, as you guys read these out, doing quality control and counting the number of syllables on my fingers.
Okay, I hope you got a lot of fingers.
So those last two have passed with flying colors. This next one, I do not believe does. So here we go. From Matt Jones. Johnny Simon and Perry G. Classic Lenses Podcast Field of View Catastrophe. Hamish Heart Rate Cardiac Arrest. So you'll notice a couple things here. Number one, the first two lines rhyme, which is not necessary. But most importantly, the format of the haiku is 3 lines with 5, 7, and 5 syllables, not words. And I do believe, Graeme, Matt sent you guys a haiku with exactly the same format, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's found a style and he's sticking to it. And I admire that. And also, I like the rhyming. It feels very much like beat poetry. I can just imagine Mike Myers in So I Married an Axe Murderer saying this poem. I'm a big fan of it. Go, you do you, Matt. You do you.
Rules are made to be broken.
Exactly. Okay, Johnny, that means you get to do Andy Clements.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with that, and it's a good bit of poetic license there.
There you go. Vindication. Go on, Johnny, take Andy's.
Sorry, I was muted because, as I explained before we ever did this episode, I don't do these giveaways. So I was going to just check out for the entire show. But since Graeme, you've asked me to do this, I will go ahead and read this haiku. Whose haiku am I reading?
Andy Clements, please.
Andy. I have to find that in the doc here because I don't have any idea where that haiku is in this list of haikus.
It's on the top of it's at the bottom of the first page, Johnny.
Okay, it's at the bottom of the first page. Oh, Andy Clement.
That Andy Clement, yeah.
Yeah, that Andy Clement. Oh, yeah, that Andy Clement. Okay. What lens should I use? Because of that podcast, can't sell any.
Very good.
So there's a syllable missing on both the second and final line of that.
Perry, how do you do that? By just listening? I mean, I have to like...
How do you do it by just listening, Perry?
Counting to 7 is not that difficult, guys.
Sure it is. You have to count to 5 and then 7 and then 5. All at the same time.
Dude, it's so good that you don't live in Asia.
I think that would have worked if it's done cannot rather than being abbreviated down to can't.
Yeah, but there's only 6 syllables in the second line as well.
Well, that's a minor detail.
It's a great start to the haiku competition. I'm very excited to be here for this.
Yes.
We're all about quantity, not quality here.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's our first batch of haiku. And I've actually in the chat before we've learnt that the plural of haiku is haiku, so thank you for those haiku. And I think what we'll do, let's do a little bit of a catch up, a reasonably brief catch up on what people have been up to and how well Perry's been dodging tear gas and things like that. So let's start with you, Perry. How's things this week?
Not great. This weekend was carnage. I mean, I don't know. You guys have probably been following the news. There's just so much craziness over the weekend. I've never seen downtown Hong Kong such a ghost town. Like, we went out for brunch yesterday, and there was nobody out in the streets. Then they started tear gassing the few people that were out at like 1 p.m., which I think is a record early. So yeah, it should be fun. Everyone's gearing up for the China National Day celebrations tomorrow, which is a public holiday. So it's okay that we're recording a little bit late. It's not going to be pretty.
And which lenses are you going to take with you to photograph the what's going to happen tomorrow?
Well, I mean, apparently taking pictures with people in them is not kosher, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, I don't know.
I think that might be a veiled comment to an email that you sent into the Sunny16 podcast that was published this morning, I do believe, by our guest Graeme. Perhaps now Graeme's actually with us on the show. You might want to take that up with him.
you want me to take it out with Graeme or him to take it out with me?
Either way, whichever works.
No. To be fair, Graeme, I think I was listening to that today on my way to work. And I think you got the point I was trying to make, but the discussion deviated a little bit because did you guys listen to it? Simon, Johnny? Well, Johnny definitely not.
Yeah, it might actually be worth you just giving our listeners a gist of what it was. I'm sure they all listened to Back in Paper and Sunny16, but just in case they didn't, perhaps you might want to just give them a little bit of background to what we're talking about here.
I'm reluctant to, because I'm so reluctant to sort of stir up the pot on these, but I basically, after episode 169, there was this long discussion on that show about the UK and street photography in the UK, and it was so depressing that I basically wrote them a book because Rachel asked me to. And then Graeme got the Conspiracy of Cartographers guy, Eric, who I think goes on trips to go get as far away from people as possible, to then read out and comment on my email about street photography. And it was going fine for the most part, but then there was one thing that he said, which was like, he literally said, I made a claim in the email, which was, if we follow the mantra that I think Animal Mystery said about his photo walks, which was don't shoot strangers or children, I said I would literally just not take any photos whatsoever. And the bit that really riled me was Eric said something along the lines of, that's bullshit. You can take photos in the street without people in them, or you can do like street photography without pictures of people in them. And I mean, not only is that physically impossible to do in Hong Kong, I think I literally wouldn't take any photos if that were the case, because that's the only kind of photo that I'm really interested in making these last couple of years at least. And I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I see sort of street photography, documentary photography, photos of people as kind of the two sides of the same coin. And telling me not to shoot pictures of the street with people in them is like telling me to eat a burger without any of the fillings. Like, I don't want to eat plain bread, you know? Like, if that's your thing, go for it. People can shoot whatever they want. I try not to pass judgment on that. But it comes a point where it's just like, you know, when I think about the photography that I like, the reason I love doing street photography or looking at other people's documentary photography is exactly what you said, Graeme. It captures a moment in time that's never going to happen again. And I think, you know, as far as photography goes, the things that I look for in a photo, street photography sort of forces you to do in an instant. Like, number one, does it trigger an emotion? Right? If so, fantastic. Number two, does it make you look at the photo for more than the fleeting second that people spend scrolling through Instagram pictures these days? And all of my favorite photos from other people are the ones that I'll stop and look at and discover more each time I look at it. Street photography does that wonderfully. And then after that, it's like, is it well composed? Is it technically well executed? Those are the kind of least important things. So for me, you know, taking pictures of architecture or street scenes with no people in them is just like taking photos of some architect's work from a different angle. You know, some people do that and it looks cool. You can get some aesthetically pleasing shots, but to me, they have no emotion or soul when I look at them. So it's the kind of image that I like to make. And to hear someone say that it's bullshit, just go take pictures with, you know, no people in them. What's the point to me?
I'm going to stick up a little bit. I don't think he was saying you shouldn't take pictures with people in them. I think what he was disagreeing with was the idea that if you couldn't take pictures with people in them, you wouldn't be able to take any pictures, because he's like saying, well, I manage to all the time. Obviously, he's taking very different photos to you. And I think the thing that originally made you so frustrated with regards to the sentiment in Anil's conversation about approaching street photography whilst he's out on the photo walk is, you have to remember that he's looking at that from the point of view of somebody who is organizing an event that he's bringing people into. And so
totally.
So he's sort of being mindful of the well-being and the care of, and not wanting something to go wrong on the day. And it's, you know, and it's a different thing. Like when he's out there shooting on his own, I'm sure he's going to shoot whatever he wants, but I think having some basic guidelines in place, because to me, like, let's take the most Tinder-like element, which is shooting children, because I think that is something that is really divisive. And to be honest, I think, especially if you're organising to take a group out, I think having as a general rule of actually just don't is probably a fairly smart thing if you're out shooting with a group of people, because that is something that can become a flashpoint very, very quickly. You don't have to search very far through news sites to find instances of people getting targeted, called paedophiles, getting physically assaulted for taking pictures of other people's children, or pictures which may or may not include other people's children in the frame. So, there's an element of risk to that. Your sort of mileage may vary, as you said on the email. You said that you do use children as part of your composition, and within you'll take pictures of people's children whilst you're out and about, and that's fine. But it is one of those things that people are very sensitive to. So I can completely understand why Anil might not want to bring that to an event where he's having to look after a load of people. And then after that, I think it's whereabouts on the sliding scale you place other people's feelings or other people's potential feelings versus your desire to create art. And Eric is a very sensitive person towards what he perceives as other people's angst. Chances are most people don't give two hoots. I think that's the reality. Most people couldn't care less whether they were captured in a quick picture, but it's a sliding scale, isn't it? I mean, you're the biggest street shooter out of the three of you guys. I mean, where do you fall on this, Simon?
I've been talking about street shooting on a few occasions quite recently, and it's something that I have difficulty in doing. I understand where Eric was coming from, and part of me is in a similar kind of place. But it was interesting just listening to him this morning. I'm thinking this Eric's even. He's got more of an issue than I have, and I do have an issue with taking photographs of strangers unless I think that they're effectively openly displaying themselves, if you like. So this is one of the things we talked to a couple of weeks ago. There was a photograph that the thought of taking pictures with children in. I'm there thinking, that's a dodgy thing to be doing, especially in the UK at the moment. Yet one of the pictures that I took, and it was a good photograph, and it was a street performer, and it was with a family, and there were two children in there, and one of the children was high-fiving the street performer, and it was just at the moment where they were actually clapping hands. So really, really pleased with the shot, and I didn't give it two thoughts that he was children in the shot. I didn't even think about them being children in the shot until I actually thought about it today, and this is 6 weeks after the event. So it's not so much the fact that don't take photos of children or whatever. It's more about if you think that the people that you're taking are comfortable in that very open scenario, that open scene, then I don't have a problem with this in the slightest, which clearly I didn't in that case.
I think this whole children thing got blown way out, because the original point that Anil made was, I totally get what you're saying. What Anil was saying, by the way, that's not the sort of issue that I had. It was that idea of, it's more of the idea that you can't shoot strangers without being respectful, or that you can't shoot strangers on a street. I mean, I totally get what Anil's saying from the perspective of organizing a photo walk and liability and stuff. And I think just the inclusion of the word children has made everyone lose sight of where I'm trying to go with this. The discussion that was originally on 169 and then exacerbated far more so by Eric's readout on backing paper was more of, I just got the vibe that there was this feeling that you can't do street photography respectfully when you're shooting strangers at all. And that's just not my attitude or experience of it. We're not talking about Bruce Gilden going up and flashing people in the face, where I'm very uncomfortable with that style of photography as well. And I know people here that do it, but I think you can do street photography in a very respectful way. Sometimes people are going to get upset, but I shoot people pretty much every single day. And for every 100 people I take a candid photo of, one will get upset and confront me. Others, a lot of them will smile and wave. If not, if they don't look comfortable, a lot of the times I don't think they're a good subject. If they notice me, I will either have a chat with them or wave at them. And it's led to some of the most human experiences. And I think the point that I was trying to make with the email is this undertone of discomfort or suspicion when you're shooting street reflects in your demeanor, and that reflects in the images. But the thing that street photography does for me that no other form of photography does is it gives you access to that entire spectrum of the human condition, as I said in that email, right? You go in with a bored mindset, you're going to see boring photos. It can be the most exciting thing you've ever done as well. You got to shoot quickly. If you can compose and consider the light and get that split-second moment, that's never going to happen again. It's a magical thing. And sometimes people know it. One of my favorite photos I ever shot was I saw this girl at the University of Hong Kong, and she was climbing the outside of the building a couple of years ago. And I was looking at her wondering, where the hell is she going? And I realized that she had climbed to the sort of the outer windowsill of a window sort of 3 floors up. So I ran up the stairs to see if I could see her from the inside. And and I could. So I metered out another window. I took the shot. And then she turned at me. She saw me taking a photo, and then she kind of waved at me, and I gave a thumbs up. And it was a really cool moment. But then when I got home and developed that shot, her entire body sort of lined up perfectly with the frame of the window, I guess. And it was such a cool moment, both seeing the moment, running to get the shot, my brief interaction with her, knowing that I couldn't shoot it again because she knew I was there and it would never be the same moment again, to then the anticipation of developing the film, which is part of why we all love shooting film, right? But at the same time, here in Hong Kong right now, with all the protests and the violence and the tear gas and the vandalism going on, street photography is an outlet for me to kind of try to capture some of that desperation of the moment too. And it's cathartic to make photos that are not just trying to capture beauty or not just trying to follow sort of rules of photography, but are actually reflective of either how I'm seeing the world and the society I live in, and the vibes that society and its people are giving back to me. And it's such an enriching experience. And so the entire discussion seemed to be centered around, don't shoot strangers, it's disrespectful. And then, I think it just including the word children in that whole discussion made everyone latch onto it as an easy target to go after. But I mean, I don't go out of my way to shoot children. Who does that? Right?
You included it in the email, so your fault. Listen, the thing is,
Anil mentioned it, right? That's why I included it.
Anil mentioned it, then you mentioned it again. Anyway, look, the point is, and I think this is the final point. So everybody comes to these things with their own baggage, and clearly, street photography is not Eric's thing. But the point that he made at the end, and I think this is the most important thing to take away from it, is like there is nothing fundamentally wrong with street photography and with shooting people, but and he said this particularly about people like yourself, Ferry. Like, you think about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you want to make. You're going in there with a lot of thought behind your street photography. You're not just doing the thing of, well, I want to be a street photographer because being street photography is cool. That's the cool thing to do, and kind of just going around going, okay, as far as I'm concerned, that just means taking pictures of random people on the street without any particular thought as to why you're taking it or actually what it's going to look like. And I think that's the difference. Is being mindful of what you want to achieve from it and the pictures you want to create, and the experience that you want to have doing it, and not just going out people collecting. And I think, and as you said, if you go out into it with the right frame of mind, you're going to have better interactions. But I remember the recent incident where I think it was I can't remember where it was, some state fair or something, when the photographer got yelled at for taking pictures of a family and stuff, and called paedophile and all sorts of names to that, and it was completely uncalled for, and he had every right to be there and all of that. But the thing is, I looked at his pictures and I was like, these are just pictures of people out and about. Like, there's nothing, there's no value particularly to these pictures other than, it's a collection of people's faces out and about. And I think that's the problem, is that sometimes that can bring it down a bit, but that's
bad street photography.
Yeah.
Right. And it it is something that I noticed. I get it. It involves people. People have concerns, right? I think there's a difference between going out and shooting in a way that's deliberately trying to either provoke people or just sort of snipe their portrait for some weird reason. But at the same time, people enjoy and go out and take pictures of random crap and make terrible photos of stuff that's not people. And it seems like street photography is held to a standard that, I totally get people who don't understand street photography or don't like it or don't appreciate the aesthetic. Like, that's totally fine. But if someone is taking random snaps of people on the street and they're not using them for nefarious purposes, that person's a bad street photographer, right? But why vilify them for that?
Oh, yeah, no, I completely agree. But the thing is, I think the reason that street photography has to be held to a slightly higher standard is because your actions can cause other people distress. Justifiably or not, it doesn't matter. Like, you take
taking a picture of someone's car.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, when we mentioned this on the show, like, I was trying to take a picture of somebody's house and that person came out livid at us. And like, it was completely unreasonable on the one hand, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because that person was real pissed off with us. It's like, okay, sorry, we'll leave. But obviously, you're far more likely to there's a higher risk of that kind of interaction because you're dealing with people, buildings rarely. So I think it's just one of those things you just got to be mindful of it, haven't you?
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. And I think, there's a lot to be said about going in with it with the right kinds of intentions, as you say. And I'm not going after Eric for personally attacking me. I don't think he did that at all. And I think he was very fair. I just think that in the two discussions on both episodes, the underlying attitude towards street photography is just so at odds with the way that I view the activity that it makes me sad,
Yeah. Yeah, I can completely see that.
Because if you look at, I don't know. I mean, if you look at the photos, sorry, this is why I didn't want to bring this up.
And Perry's final thoughts on this subject are...
No, because I mean, if you look at the people who share street photographs I don't know about a group of like photography with classic lenses because there's just millions of different photos in there. But certainly if you look at like Johnny's street photography, I think if you look at my street photography, it doesn't come across as disrespectful, right?
No, absolutely. No, I don't disagree with that at all. And, that's the whole thing is like, this whole thing started because I think you were upset because nobody ever said, oh, it is fundamentally, going out and shooting strangers is a problematic thing. I think it was more just, we have to be mindful that there are more instances of people responding badly to having their pictures taken than perhaps there have been in the past. So
I totally know what you mean, and I totally get that. I just think that there's so much more scope for discussion on like the artistic challenges and merits of making good street photographs that people end up shying away from that because they can't get over that initial, oh, what if people get pissed off at me?
Well, we've certainly added to that for the last 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was going to say, I've just got one small thing to add to that, and those. I mean, I've tried my hand at street photography on quite a few occasions. And when I first started, I was doing it almost like secretly, or in fact, in case I was doing it secretly, I was like holding a compact camera down by my leg and then taking shots and stuff like that because I was so self-conscious. And I look at those shots and they're just not honest photos. They're not particularly good either. And to use the phrase that Graeme was saying earlier about people collecting, and that's all it was. And I realised these photographs at first I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. It's just a person that you've just got, and they don't realise what was going on there. There's no great artistic merit to it. And when I did attempted to do street shooting in London those few weeks ago, and I've already talked about one of the photographs there. There were two other photographs which I view as being decent street photos, but all of the good street photos that I took on those two rolls of film were shots that I was happy to take. I was in the moment, almost like there was almost a connection between me and the subjects, even though I wasn't talking to them. They didn't necessarily know I was taking a photograph there, but they were having a moment, And I was able to share in that moment, and I felt completely, I lacked any kind of self-consciousness while I was doing it. Whereas with the other shots, it just felt like people collecting. So I think it is that thing about the attitude that you go into taking the photographs. You've said it today, and you said it in that email. I think that it really, really does matter.
It does, and you know, when I go into a street shoot, the first thing I do is I take out my headphones, and then I spend the first 10 to 20 minutes just walking around without my camera until I feel like I'm a part of the street and you know, interacting with the people in a natural way and feeling the street. And then I feel like I can get my best photographs, because that initial wall between you and everyone else, the sort of photographer to subject wall, once that dissolves, then I find that's when I feel most free to shoot the images that I want.
So, Johnny, what have you been up to this week?
Wow. Not much compared to you guys, apparently. Nothing. I mean, I went to work, did some laundry. I didn't do anything on par with all this. Oh my gosh. No, it's a good conversation though. I mean, we're done talking about it, right?
You can feel free to jump in though. You haven't said anything.
No, I don't even think about it anymore. I mean, you know what? I just don't take pictures of kids. I just don't ever. I just completely and utterly have no, it's like homeless people. I completely and utterly have no interest in taking pictures of them. So I actually understand why people are sensitive about it. And this isn't 1960, and it's just a different era. And I just do not take pictures of children. I take pictures of people, but not them, and not their kids, and not them and their kids. And that's all I got on that. It's really simple. I just don't even think about it.
Right. You know what I think would be nice now? I think we need to cheer us up. Some haikus to cheer us up.
Please, yeah.
Is there one about kids and street photography in there we can read?
If only. I'm going to read this first one because I think it's perfect for this. A perfect transition. This one's from Robbie Jameson. Ketchup on hot dog. Packets now cost 15 cents. Tasteless savages. That's from Robbie J. I like that. I'm guessing that this is relating to some Chicago food talk on the Chicago Food Talk podcasts.
It certainly is. It goes back to Mike Novak and possibly my insistence that ketchup is actually the best thing to put on a hot dog, which apparently I'm wrong. If I was in Chicago, I'd be very wrong on that.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with you. I like ketchup on everything. So, we can be savages together.
Okay. Well, let's... I'm going to read... I was going to do... Because we had Paul Friday with an entry here, but actually Paul Friday's done so many, we're going to have a whole section of Paul Friday. Okay, so let's do the John Bruning slot. And Perry, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. John Bruning says, "Gents, love the show and the sense of community you guys have built around it. All the shooters around my next of the woods," I think he means neck of the woods, "look at me like I'm an idiot for shooting with vintage glass. Nice to know there are others out there who love these old gems as I do. My entry into the Haiku challenge, Gas Haiku, by John R. Bruning." And there's a note here from Simon that John is a published author.
Oh, so this is going to be really good then.
Yes.
So
let's build this
Pulitzer-winning high. Yeah, get your Pulitzers ready. Classic lens goodness. My wallet dying of gas. Free lens will save it.
That's
Very good.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. And just going back to, and I actually responded to John on this when people are looking at him when he's using an old lens on his camera compared to everybody else with their modern autofocus lenses, and they look down upon him. And when I find myself in those situations, I look down upon them So I think myself, you just need all the better optics and the autofocus just to take a shot. So yeah, I go in there with a feeling of superiority when I see people like that.
How very British of you, Simon.
Yeah, exactly.
The crazy thing on that is when I'm out and about shooting these days, I see more people with either old film cameras or digital cameras with old lenses adapted to them than I think I see people with digital cameras, at least for the type of shooting that I do.
Are you just blocking out other people then? So that can't be the case.
Maybe. I mean, I see a lot of people with Fujis running around, and I ignore anyone with a long lens because I just assume they're birding, like doing some urban birding or something. No, but the areas that I like to go shoot on a day-to-day basis, I'm just constantly walking past and running into people with like Leicas, Sonys with adapted lenses. It's super cool.
Yeah, I can kind of back that up a little bit. That's kind of my experience in downtown Chicago too. I mean, part of that is because there's like 12 colleges who have campuses downtown, so it's a lot of kids running around with cameras. But it's actually, I mean, you see the people with DSLRs, but I see a lot of film cameras or digitals with old lenses on them as well. It's kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainly among the sort of street photography crowd, I see loads of like Olympus, Minoltas, Nikons, rangefinders. Canonets are super popular. I saw a guy the other day. I was out shooting, and a dude walked past me. I was holding, I think, my X-Pan, and he was holding Mamiya C330, and we just walked past each other, shooting the same kind of scene, and just had this knowing, look of acknowledgement.
Did you not high-five him?
No, he was holding. We were both holding our cameras.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, let's do the next one. I'll take this one. This is from Eric Sluice, friend of the show. Time froze an instant. Light taken by silver grain, kept in dark chambers. And in Eric's case, that's a catacomb under his house, where he keeps all his expired film.
Don't we all?
Yes.
Johnny, I'm going to keep making you read these damn things. Can you read this one from Steve?
Where are we?
It's you'll find it's the one after.
Oh wait,
Eric.
Steve knew, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this all right, Perry? We'll have to. I'm just looking at the number of words, and there's not very many. So, words versus syllables. Perry will have to give us a count here. Konica 40 disappoints on Sony. Perry unhappy.
Second line is one syllable too.
Perry very unhappy.
Perry very unhappy.
Look, these haikus are great, but you guys dragged me here, and I came on with no understanding that I could come here and badger you about some stuff, and we've already gone through the hard work of having to discuss street photography.
Yes. So you've got a bag of lenses, haven't you? Some lenses you don't know what to do with.
Well, yeah, I just want to get some feedback. I want to find out one, because I'm sure I'm sitting on an absolute fortune with these lenses. I know they're all going to be ones that you're super big fans of, because they're real rarities and real unusual focal lengths. And I just want to kind of get some advice and just some thoughts on some of these lenses and ask you a lot of stupid questions. So advanced apologies to all the listeners on here who already know a ton of stuff about all the lenses and stuff, but these are going to be some real idiot questions going from me. But so the first thing is, I'm going to warn you, because I know that this is the thing that the three of you have issues with, is that I have the focal lengths that you guys don't like. So my lenses are pretty much all, I don't think I've got very many, but they're either 28mm, boo, 50mm, boo.
No, 50 is good. 50
Oh, phew. Well, that's.
I don't mind 28. It's just these other guys.
Yes, just these other asshats. And 135. Because Barry, you seem like the most reasonable one. So I listened to the show many months ago when Johnny and Carl and Simon were discussing cheap lenses, and it did seem that 28mm and 135mm in particular came in for quite a lot of dissing. Is that just because they're the most common ones out there, so they're not special enough for you?
I don't I don't get the 28 hate. I quite like 28 millimeter. It's difficult for me to use because most of my rangefinders I can't see the frame lines.
Okay, so there are actually good logistical.
I think no. I think what they were talking about is it's not significantly wide enough over a 35 that it feels like a proper wide angle, and so that they would rather use like a 24 or wider. I think that's the general logic.
Mm-hmm. I think they're just lens racists. Okay, so let me look at some of these lenses I've got. So I'm gonna have to turn around here because my lenses. So I've got a lot of 50mm lenses, and I haven't brought all of them here. But I'm going to ask you about some of the ones that I've got because I know you've talked about a lot of them. So let's see what I grab first. Okay,
I'm really excited for this because I wonder if Graeme has because on Sunny16 you guys always talk about how you hoard gear.
Oh no, this really is a bag of crap I've got here. But actually, this is quite. Let me find the other one that goes with this. This is great audio. I've really enjoyed me going far away from the thing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I have got here. This is the first thing I'm going to ask about. I have got two. Count them. It should be fairly easy. Two Helios 44 lenses. Okay. So I have got.
Strong start, by the way.
Thanks. I'm very proud. I have got the Helios 44-2 and the Helios 44M4. Which one's the good one?
The two.
The two. Okay. Why?
Because it's better.
Is it just because it's older?
No. I think the 44-4 and the 44-2, I think optically they're pretty much the same. Or is it the 44M? I'm starting to get a little bit jaded on 44s as well now. But going with the M's range, they're the later lenses and they've got an automatic aperture.
Yeah.
And the higher the number, in this case a 4, and they go up to 7. The higher the number, allegedly, the sharper they get, and probably in general terms they do. I think the 44-4 is largely on a par with the 44-2. I don't know if either of you guys could agree with that one. Perry, Johnny?
I got a huge confession to make here.
They're too cheap, aren't they?
I have never owned a Helios 44.
There are times where we wonder how you got onto this show.
And I have owned and disposed of one Helios 44.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll field this one. Yeah. Okay. So I think I got a sneaky feeling the 4 is either very similar or the same as the 44-2. It might be slightly sharper, but I mean, we're splitting hairs. We're talking about pixel peeping when we're talking about sharpness, and these things tend to show up perhaps a little bit more if you're doing sub macro work and you're trying to do something with particular sharpness, but. Really, for me, the point of the 44 is the character of the lens. It's a biotar design. It does interesting things at the edges of the picture, especially if you're using it on a larger sensor. But for practical reasons, I prefer the 44-2, especially if you're adapting it to mirrorless, because it's just an easier lens to actually use because you have the preset. Ability.
Pretty sure Graeme is not adapting it to mirrorless, though, right?
No, I mean, I do my digital camera. I've got an X Pro one,
That's
so
it.
I do sometimes use it on my X Pro. And I do have it because almost all of my lenses, most of the ones I'm going to talk about this evening, are mostly M42 mount because that's ubiquitous.
Well,
so.
I mean, I'm assuming you've gone and done the whole swirly bokeh thing with them, right?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I can certainly see, as Simon said, but the fact that with the preset on the lens, that is a nice feature. And actually, as I'm playing with this, the 44M, I'm not sure whether I'm kind of pushing in the pin at the bottom, and that doesn't seem to be doing a great deal. So I'm thinking it's going to be great for wide open shots.
Well, is there also something that looks a bit like a switch on the side of it, near to the aperture ring?
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah.
That's it. Now try and maneuver that switch so it goes into the next position.
Okay.
And then turn the aperture ring.
Okay. I'll have a fiddle around with that. Yeah, it seems to be okay. Yeah,
well,
probably.
Is it without touching the pin now? Is it opening and closing the aperture?
No, it actually doesn't have. No, I was looking at this, and it doesn't seem to have a manual and automatic switch on this one that I can see. I'll have to fiddle around, but no, I think that one might just be broken. I think is the technical term.
It's to be honest, I thought that was actually one of the ones that does actually have a switch on it, an auto manual switch, which enables it to the aperture will close down with the pin or not. But this is actually one of the reasons why I prefer the 44s, because you've got complete control of the aperture. And this is also going to be dependent on the adapter that you might use as well, because some adapters have a ledge in there to capture the pin, which will then allow as you open and close the aperture, it will then change the ring, it will then open and close the aperture. Whereas if you're using an adapter, or perhaps a helicoid adapter that doesn't have the ledge, then if you don't have a switch, or you've got a lens that sounds like yours that doesn't work when you put it into the manual bit, then you'll close the aperture down and nothing's going to happen. It's just going to stay wide open. So the 44-2 is just it's a more friendly lens to adapt, and that's the reason why I would suggest that that's it's a great starting lens and potentially finishing lens with the Helios 44 range.
Gotcha. Excellent stuff. That's good to know. Okay, so I can the 44M. I'm gonna make a pile of good ones. But actually, let me see if I grab the right one here. Whilst we're on the subject of Helios, this is another one I want to ask you about, because you were quite rude about this lens, Simon.
What's coming?
Yeah, my Helios Auto Wide Angle 2.8 35 millimeter. You slandered it and said it's not even a proper Helios. The only thing that connects that to a Helios is what it says on the nameplate,
and that is it. I'm certainly not slagging off Japanese lenses, but it's a Japanese lens, and not made in Mother Russia. I'm just trying to think if there is actually. Well, there certainly isn't a Russian-made Helios with there's a 35 to 2.8 anyway. That's the thing there. So it's a branded lens made as cheaply as possible, and just using that brand.
It seems bizarre to me that people are like a Japanese lens manufacturer is choosing to buy and use a Russian lens name that seems quite ass backwards.
I think it's almost certainly going to be something that was probably aimed at the British market, because and it would be an importer, and I forget the name actually. There was actually a specific importer that was bringing the stuff in from Russia, and it wouldn't surprise me if they were the people behind that lens, because they wanted to get a cheap 35 millimeter lens on the M42 screw mount for the Zenit cameras that they were bringing over. So it was, I mean, at the end of the day, Zenits were very, very popular in the UK because they were cheap. And let's face it, if you got a good lens and you got a Zenit camera that actually worked well, it was pretty much as good as anything. Because I mean, a camera is a camera. It's a light box and a lens, and as long as all the things actually work properly, which in many cases with a Zenit or a Helios lens might not. But if you actually go on the works, then it's not hard to find people that used to have those cameras and used to swear by them and really, really like them rather than swear at them.
Well, I feel sorry for those people. Okay, I've got some more M42 Mount 50mm because you can kind of. So you said that the design in the Helios is a biotar design. Is that a fairly common design for sort of cheap and cheerful 50mm?
No.
Okay. Right.
Yes. Well, yes and no. Right. It's a traditional double Gauss, which is a symmetrical design that you see in a lot of 50mm lenses. But the biotar variation, the rear, Graham's probably sitting there going, I don't give a shit about this. But the rear group is, it's like smaller than the front group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of signature look that you get where it's quite sharp, it's got quite nice contrast, but then it has a bit of that, those edge aberrations. That's quite typical of a biotar signature.
Okay, so I've got a couple more here. You can tell me if these are, because they're quite different size lenses. So and I know that these are both ones that you've talked about on the show before. So the first one I've got here is my Fujinon 55mm 2.2 lens. And I really like this because this is a real dinky little lens. Is this one any good?
That lens is wild.
I have that lens and I love it.
Yeah, that's the one that Johnny wanted to add to the cheap lens challenge, and
yeah, I would much prefer to use that lens over the Helios.
Oh, totally.
Anytime.
Yeah.
So explain to me why this one is better than that one.
It's a 4-element, right?
Yeah, I think it. Well, yes,
But
it's essentially.
not a tessar.
I think it's actually a 5-element. It's essentially a tessar with an extra element to make it overcorrected to 2.2, which is what causes all the craziness to happen with that lens. So it's like a weird hybrid 5-element tessar.
So Graeme, let's start with bokeh. Because if you're shooting the Helios, you're gonna get swirly bokeh, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you shoot the Fuji 55 2.2, you're gonna get sort of crazy looking soap bubble bokeh. Not quite as clean as the like the trio plan, but it's fairly wild, but not swirly. So it's got a very unique look. Stuff glows with this lens in places where it shouldn't glow. That's sort of the way that I describe pictures I see with it.
Okay, I'm with you. And so, because I mean, this is the thing, like when I'm looking at lenses, it feels like sometimes like the shorthand is, well, the faster it is, the better it is. But clearly this is not faster. This is, if anything, slower. But the design, the way it's been built, means it...
Dude, faster is not better. That's marketing, man.
Yeah.
You just got to try the Canon Dream lens to put that idea to bed.
Okay, that's cool. So that's one that I definitely should be using more than my...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Try it with backlit subjects.
Okay, and that's when they'll pick up the glow when I try it with that.
Yeah,
and I was got to say though, don't feel bad if it doesn't do it for you, because I'd take the Helios over that every time. So I've just never got on with that lens. Johnny and Perrier talk good things about it, and I've seen some really interesting pictures with it. But whenever I've used it, it's just nothing's ever really happened to it. I don't particularly like the feel of it either. I like the all metal feel of that Helios 44-2 any day.
Wait, Simon, would you rather take flower photos with a Helios 44 over a Fuji 55 2.2?
Yeah. I'd pretty much take any photograph with a Helios over that Fuji.
Oh, interesting. Because I think I would pick the Helios for portraits and pictures of people and stuff. But for pretty much anything else, I think the Fuji looks cooler.
Well, there you go.
Okay, good to know. Before I forget about it, whilst we're on the subject of Fuji stuff, because one of the lens types that like never really gets talked about because I don't think the cameras were terribly popular, the Fuji AX mount stuff, AX, FX, whatever something X. So like I've got a 50mm 1.6 on that camera. Have any of you guys mucked around with that at all? Because I'm guessing it's not terribly popular or common.
It's not I've just quickly, because I can say something on this one, guys. Have you used this lens?
No.
Johnny? No. Perry? Johnny?
Nope.
No. Yeah, it's a really, really good lens. There were actually, it's the second version as well, because there was initially it was a 55 1.6, and I say initially it's a different lens, but I've got more experience with the 55, and that's a lens I actually really, really like. And then the 50 was brought out because there was a shift somewhere. I'm not entirely sure when it was in time, but normal lenses, standard lenses, were like 55s or 57s and 58s, and then they started to get that little bit wider, which I don't know what the trigger point was, but certainly the idea of a normal lens or a standard lens was that it's going to be the similar or the equivalent to what your eye sees, and certainly, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be in most cases, 55mm or longer is going to be longer than people's normal sight. I think arguably it's probably 40 something. So I think that was probably behind the drive to take things down to 50mm. But the 50 1.6, it's a lot lighter than the 55. The construction of it's not quite as nice, but in terms of the way that lens delivers optically, it's a really, really good lens. It's a very solid, sharp lens. And I think it's just an excellent all-round lens. It's just a shame that the mount, if you do want to adapt it to mirrorless, your choice of adapters is quite limited, and sometimes it's quite hard to find, because I think they actually called it FX as well, which really confuses things when you're actually trying to find something. So it's like one of my pet hates anyway, with when manufacturers reuse a name from the past. And whereas once you could actually find something like, you could do a search for Canon RF, and that would be a search for Canon rangefinders, whereas now it's all the mirrorless ones. And the same goes with Olympus pen. Once upon a time you could find the old film camera lenses and cameras, whereas now it's just bombarded with the latest digital cameras.
Gotcha. But worth looking out for, though, because I mean, it does seem that any lenses that Fuji make are probably going to be pretty darn good lenses. They made good stuff, didn't they?
Even the bad stuff's good in the case of that 2.2.
I mean, I'm looking at some sample photos, and they look really good. This lens is, I mean, it's got to be just a double Gauss, right?
Yeah, I assume so. I've not read anything to say it's anything particularly extraordinary. I think it's just terms of its formulation. Yeah,
because the pictures they look sharp. They look relatively well corrected, except for a bit of field curvature, but that looks nice. I think this is going to be a good lens, Graeme.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I have used it once, mostly because I don't use the camera very often, because it's got some light leaks in it, and I've got quite a lot of SLRs. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to rush back to this one, but the one roll of film that I did put through it, the color rendition was really nice, and it did some really fun stuff. It's like some of those pictures are still pictures I go back to now, so I either need to use that camera more or get an adapter to use it on my digital more.
Does it say EBC on it as well? Has it got those letters saying EBC?
Yes, I think it does. I will just double check though. Yes, it is the EBC.
Yeah, I mean that was their version of multi-coating. So you got, like with Pentax, you got super multi-coating and all that kind of stuff. And the EBC lenses from Fuji were probably certainly of the era, they were the most advanced coatings, possibly more advanced than the Zeiss T-Star coatings. So they've got a really, really good reputation from that point of view. And that lens as well is also available on M42 as well. But I think the cost on M42 is probably twice, I'm guessing, what it would be on the old Fuji mount as well.
Yeah, I think that's hard to find.
Yeah, I think I picked it up pretty cheap as well, the lens for that. I got a really nice condition one just randomly from Ford's or somewhere years ago. And okay, cool. That's good to know. So, okay,
you could probably adapt that to other mounts for film cameras as well.
I know I've seen, I have seen the FX to M42 mount adapters, but again, they're not super cheap and they don't come up very often. So,
are we seriously, as in that the old FX mount to another, to like M42 or something like that? Is that what you?
Yeah, I swear I've seen people use the old EBC lenses on like a Canon DSLR.
Yeah, well, you could do especially if it was the question is though, would it have been actually an EBC but with an M42 mount? Because let's say you could get them.
Good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it's a relatively obscure mount, and just from the laws of commerce, should we say, the amount of money you've got to put into actually making adapters for these, you want to see a return, and it's it's going to be a tiny market, that would be.
Yeah, I just wonder whether maybe Fuji themselves made some adapters for people who, when they brought out the new range of, I don't know. Okay, so
wait, just real quick. I'm looking up the flange distance, and the Fujica X mount has the same flange distance as the Minolta SR.
Ah, well, that is going to make it even harder then, because that's quite a short one, relatively speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So pretty much, that's tough.
Okay, well, nuts. Okay, I've got a couple more of my M42 50mm. I want to find out where these fit into where I wrote these. And these are probably the two that I use the most. The first one, and I have used this quite a few times on my X Pro, is the Pentacon 1.8. Just the sort of auto multi-coated, bog standard one. I've really liked that. Well, I mean, sure, that has some real nice blur on it. Where does that fit on your guys? Is this really like, nope, throw it in the bin?
I have that lens.
And that's all I've got to say about that.
I've shot it once in the last 10 years. It's okay.
It's not a bad lens.
Yeah.
No, it's not bad.
I mean, I have picked it up, and I think years ago I actually did some mucking around and trying out the different 50mm in particular. And I remember that I preferred this to actually the Helios. I think at the time I can't remember which one I was comparing it against, but I really like these Pentacon 1.8s. Like I said, I'm the expert.
What does it look like? Describe.
It's round. It's got glass at the front, and let me have a look at the back. Oh, glass at the back too. How can I tell which version it is? Give me some clues.
How many aperture blades does it have?
Okay, that I can probably tell you. Assuming that the diaphragm thing works on this one. Okay, 1 second. I think it's right.
Surely they all have 6, don't they?
Yeah, 6.
I think they all do, don't they? I'm just thinking because the prior model was the Myroptic Oriston, and then it just transformed it. I don't think there are actually that many different versions. I mean, it went on to the Praktica bayonet mount as well, but it was.
I swear there's a version. Mounts. I swear there's a version with more, because I remember posting a shot of a bokeh shot with mine. And then someone, I forget who, replied with a picture with like a 10-blade one. I could be wrong, but I think so.
No, I think they were just criticising you for stopping it down to do bokeh shots, and you were doing hexagons.
Does it have, Graeme, does it have a button on the side that stops down the aperture?
Yes, it does have the auto manual thing on it.
So you've got the same one that I've got, where it's got like a crazy long focus throw.
Yeah, it does actually, yeah. And it focuses pretty close as well.
And the font is like orange or red and white.
I had this thing in my hands 1 second ago.
Green.
It is. What? Sorry, bear with, caller. So many lenses everywhere. No, it's just white actually. It's very boring and white on this one.
I think there are going to be several versions of that lens. And just as a point, I think when we were talking about some budget lenses, or starter lenses or something like that, I think this was actually a lens that I brought up as being a recommendation for as a great starter lens.
You said you recommend it to everyone but never use it.
And that's exactly it, and that's more or less what I'm going to say now, because I've got a couple of them, and I just like Perry, I never use it, but I've seen some amazing photographs taken with that, and some of these photographs I think have been done in a way that I don't think any other lens could have done it. So certainly, if you're doing the close-up stuff and it's shooting wide open, and you've got lots of small points of light that are going to meld together, it's capable of giving unique results. So I think it's got to be a keeper. But it's a funny thing, you know. I say it's criminally underrated and undervalued and such, but you know, relatively few people want to use them. And I don't really know why I don't want to use mine, or it's just a case of I've just got many nicer lenses. But I think if you persevere with it and you get to know the character of it, I think you could really get some very interesting shots out of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So I've got just a couple more quick ones here, and then I'll move on to other ones. So this is, although it is the most battered, knackered lens I've got, in some ways it's kind of, and then the focusing is also a bit loose in it. It's my Super Takumar 1.4.
Yeah.
50, right? Yeah. I really like this lens. I found this in a antique place is being over generous, but that kind of place. And I actually took in my digital camera to try it out to make sure it worked because it's so knackered. And I was immediately so impressed by the color contrast and stuff like that. It's like, and it's the fastest lens I've got as well, because all the rest of my stuff is 1.8 or slower. But yeah. This one, what's the design of this lens? Is this the same as the Helios kind of stuff?
Well, no. Do you have the 7 element or the 8 element?
I'm assuming that this doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Is it yellow?
It is the radioactive one, yeah.
Okay. And the focus, I assume, is buttery smooth.
Yes. Yeah.
Those lenses are sweet.
Yeah.
It's a lens I really enjoy. Somebody's just thrown theirs.
Well, I mean, They're excellent lenses. They're some of my favorites as well. I mean, as far as M42 lenses go, the 55-1.8 and the 50-1.4 Super Takemars are hands down, I think, my favorite. But Johnny, I think you have thoughts on the difference between the 7 and 8 element, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well. I mean, the only reason there any difference is that it's sharper, completely wide open at short distances. I mean, great. If that's your thing, knock yourself out, But I mean, for actual photography, you won't see any difference between them. They're totally the same.
Yeah, but what you've just actually said there is enough to make somebody want it more than the other.
Well, hey, great. They're going for about almost $400 now, so knock yourself out for that extra little bit of sharpness you get, so you can blow it up on your screen and look at it and say, "Wow, that's sharp." Have at it.
So what you said before, like what some of the other lenses were particularly good for shooting. So like, what kind of subject matter am I going to do well with the 1.4?
That's just a great general purpose real photography lens. I mean, it's great. It feels great to use. It has great colors, great contrast, great sharpness. I mean, there's no downside to that lens.
Gotcha.
It's so good. At both the 50-1.4 and the 55-1.8 wiped the floor with this Konica that we're giving away.
It's the best, cheapest, most excellent lens. I mean, it's like that lens was built to provide an image that looked quote unquote professional back in the day. That was the look people considered to be a professional look, and that was a professional level lens. Was the 1.4, right? The 1.8 was it. The 1.4 is the one you would have paid a lot more. That would have been like the professional lens that people aspired to, and then the rendering was clean and sharp and contrasty with great colors, and that's what
colors so good.
Yeah, that's what exactly the template that they went after with that lens, and there's no downside to that lens.
I mean, Graeme, of the lenses that you've raised so far, if you or any listeners are looking for a classic lens that renders in a fairly modern way, it's well corrected and sharp,
right?
It's hard to beat the Takemars for price. Whereas the other 50s you've raised, with the exception of maybe the Fuji 51.6, are more character lenses. Right?
Right.
They have significant flaws that you can take advantage of to make images that you wouldn't be able to with some of these better corrected lenses.
Yeah.
But use the Takemar for and there's something to be said as well for having a beat up lens, because you're just more inclined to use it and less likely to baby it.
Yeah. That's cool.
True.
Yeah. I have got, now this is a fairly new thing for me. I have actually got a Leica thread mount lens here.
Yeah.
Because I am the proud owner. I don't know whether you're aware of this, Simon. I actually am the owner
a Jupiter 12?
No, it's not a Jupiter 12. It's a Jupiter 8. It's a Jupiter.
Oh, nice.
I was very kindly given by the lovely Jeremy North a Fed 2. I don't know whether this has come up anywhere, but and the Fed 2 has got, I think it's a Fed lens in it as a standard. I haven't got the camera right in front of me now, which I should have done. But whatever the standard lens is on the Fed, I'm assuming it's still, and it is a Fed lens, isn't it? Am I being an idiot here?
No, well, some actually
could be.
Some of the old ones actually say Fed on there, but the chances are it's an Industar of some description, and maybe like a 61 or a 50, both of which actually the 61 I really dislike, but it's one of that or a 50, but there's going to be a Tessar anyway. Yeah,
I mean, I've just developed the first roll for my shot through that, and I have to say I'm really pleased with the results from that. The lens has done a really nice job. But to go along with that, my friend Alex Purcell has given me this Jupiter 8 lens. So that's going to be the next thing I try with this camera. So what kind of differences am I going to see between these two lenses? Are they likely to behave in different ways?
No. The stock lens is a 4-element Tessar, which Simon loves so much. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Jupiter 8 is a copy of the Zeiss Sonar, which is my personal favorite 50mm lens design. That is the only Soviet lens that I enjoy using and that I use on a regular basis as well. Do you have a black one or a silver one?
It's a black one because I'm cool.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I'm going to be putting on a silver camera. Is that I can never remember which way is acceptable and which way.
No,
is
that's
not.
fine. Silver lens on black camera, that's no good. Black lens on silver camera, that's totally fine.
Oh, phew! What a relief.
This lens, the Sonar, it's got an interesting history because, I mean, we've talked about it loads on the podcast, but essentially it was a design from just before the era when lens coatings became a widely available thing. And so the way that the lens is designed helps boost contrast without needing to use the ultra-modern coatings. So you are going to get a lot of interesting results of this design. It's going to be fairly soft wide open. And as you stop it down, it sort of transforms into another lens. So wide open versus stop down, one stop, it's going to have kind of two different looks. The bokeh is going to be better controlled as you stop down. The sort of 3D poppy rendering you'll get out of a Jupiter 8 is very, very nice. This is a lens I would use almost exclusively for people and portraits.
Okay, great. That's good to know. I'm looking forward to trying that one out. Seeing as you just expressed so much love for Soviet stuff, I've got a couple more Soviet lenses here. We're going to move on now. So let me grab this thing. I think this was made out of an artillery shell. So we're looking at 135 mil now. Everyone's favorite format and your favorite. So this is, I don't know how to say this. Tair? The 11A. I think this thing has, I think it has all of the aperture blades.
Yeah, all the aperture blades, yes.
Yeah. It weighs a lot. It's pretty huge. I mean, the sturdiness of it is kind of impressive. Okay, let's talk about the two of these at once because I've got two lenses that are. Where's the other one? So the other one I've got is equally heavy, but not quite as big and bulky. And this is the. I don't know what that word is because it's written in Cyrillic.
Let's say Jupiter.
Let's say Jupiter. Okay, so the lens is, and these both got the moniker 11A. So let's say the Jupiter 11A. So this is the f4 135, and the Tair is the 2.8 135. They're both pretty heavy. They're both made of just cast iron by the feel of it. But the Jupiter is quite a lot smaller. And also the Jupiter doesn't have the preset selector. What did you decide on as the name for these rings in the end?
Well, I think we decided not to talk about them ever again. But that Jupiter does have a preset. Because on the aperture ring, I'm not sure if you pull it down or you lift it up, it's probably on a spring.
Oh yeah, look at that! It does.
There you go. So that's your combined preset and aperture ring.
Okay.
Yeah. So two really good lenses, two really ugly lenses at the same time as well. I'm going to call the other one the Tair, but I'm sure it's probably the Tair, but I'm going to say Tair. Tair 11A, and that's the second. Well, I say you can't say these things definitively because there's so many different versions of these lenses. But let's call it the successor to the Tair. I think is it a 133. I think the original one was a 133, which is usually a silver lens, and then the later one is the A, and when you get one of those Soviet lenses with the letter A after them, that means that it's also got an interchangeable mount on there. I think the T2 mounts, so you can actually unscrew the mount, and if you can find one, which it always strikes me nobody ever seems to make them, or you can never actually find these in different mounts. But in theory, you can unscrew it and put it screw a different mount on there and put it onto a different camera. But everyone I've ever seen has been M42. So they're both the ugly children of the lenses that came before, because the Jupiter 11, as opposed to the 11A, that actually came in about 3 different versions, or possibly even more. But the M42 Jupiter 11 is one of my favourite lenses, especially if you get a good one. And you've mentioned there that we've had a bit of a downer on 135s. That's not entirely true. back in the day when we did an episode on 135 lenses, I think it was episode 11 actually, off the top of my head. I don't know why I can remember that. But we started talking about 135 lenses, and I think we opened it up like saying, well, we don't really use these lenses that much. And then by the time we'd finished and we'd heard Johnny's stories of Germans walking through the mountains of Bavaria with a 135 lens, we came out of that episode absolutely loving 135 lenses. And I've got to say, it's as far as I'm doing more landscape photography now, whether that be on film or on digital. And 135 is my favourite focal length for landscapes. And whether that be for just like picking out details, or as I've done quite recently, I've been stitching shots together to make a wider scene. But when you do that, you can just like bring the scenery closer, and then you take multiple shots, and you have greater width at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's you're getting best of both worlds. But the tear is, a lot of people love that lens. It's their favourite 135. I've never really got on with it. I've had a few of them, and I always find the colours a little bit muddy compared to the one that went before it, the 133. I've liked almost everything I've ever seen of a 133, whereas the tear, it's never quite done it for me. And the 11A, I've heard lots of people saying that optically it's better than the normal 11, but I've never been drawn to it because it just looks so uninviting to use, and it doesn't feel particularly interesting to use at the same time. And for me, and I think a lot of people that use old lenses, the feel of a lens is every bit and sometimes more important than the output.
Yeah, I mean the problem I found with the tear is that especially using it with the X Pro, that lens is significantly bigger and heavier than the camera is. So handling becomes something of an issue just to be able to manage it nicely. So would you say that the Jupiter, if I'm going to go out and take some pictures, the Jupiter's probably a good go-to with that?
Oh, definitely. It's a fantastic lens, and it's one of those. I mean, I tend to gravitate more towards the faster lenses because I'm not a rangefinder person like Johnny and Perry. I like faster lenses, whereas I would absolutely pick up a Jupiter 11 over a Tele or another 2.8 lens potentially if I wanted to travel light, and I wouldn't worry about it being that little bit slower, because at the end of the day, with 135 you've got a pretty slim depth of field to work with anyway if you want to isolate things. So yeah, the only advantage really, well, the main advantage is you just get a brighter viewing screen if you're using it on a DSLR with a faster lens. So yeah, I'm big fan of the Jupiter 11 range, but I prefer the older type. And my tip for using it on a smaller camera, if you wanted to get because I'm not recommended the 11A at all here, but I would say probably the optimum version to use would be the Contax Kiev version of that lens, because it's very light. It looks brilliant in my opinion, or ridiculous depending on your viewpoint, because it just is this long, slim silver lens, and there is it looks very, very similar to the LTM version, to the one for Leica thread mount, but it's got a significant advantage over that one, and that's that it's got a much closer minimum focus distance, which is just a really useful thing to have. Sometimes it doesn't make any difference, but if you've got a long lens and you can't focus on anything that's closer than 2 meters away, it's a bit of a handicap at times. So the downside about that particular mount though is you've got to use an adapter. The chances are that somebody's hacked off a Kiev camera back somewhere in Ukraine or Russia, and some are better than others. Gotcha. And so you're saying that with these 135 lenses, I'm better off taking them out and using them for doing landscape stuff rather than trying to do portrait stuff with them necessarily? Oh, well, that's just me, and it's in a case of it also depends on what camera you're using it on there as well. So will it be 135 or will it be a crop of 135? But I mean, I've said this in the past. I used to use my Jupiter 11 all of the time when I used to use it as a walk around lens on Micro Four Thirds. So it was a 270mm lens effectively, and I used to use it all the time just to walk about and just pick details out. Yeah. Whereas I wouldn't dream of going out with a 270mm lens on full frame. It's just a really odd thing, but it works really well on crop, and it sort of. You sort of work around the focal length, and it's one of those things, isn't it, where you're restricted. You've got something that's a little bit odd, and then eventually your mind becomes attuned to what you're going to be able to see with that kind of odd focal length, and then you start spotting details and think, oh, that's going to work with this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Simon on that. I think the conventional wisdom in among digital photographers is use 85 to 135 for portraits, but I'm with Simon. I like using long lenses for scenery, picking out details, especially distant details, because when I'm shooting portraits, I like to be able to talk to my subject and not have to sort of stand a mile away and yell at them.
Gotcha. No, that's good advice, because I think when I've tried to use, I took out my Olympus with a 135 lens recently, and I think I was just trying to use it like a 50mm. I was just walking further away from things. Like, okay, I'm not using this for what it's meant to be used for. I've got one more 135mm lens I want to ask about. So I know that this is not one of the cool lens names, but I know that they sometimes made good lenses, and I just want to know whether this one's worth my effort of actually trying out. And this is a Tamron. So this is a sort of a weird thing. This is a Tamron twin Tele lens. So it's got 135mm bit and then an adapter with glass in it, which turns it into a 200 and something or other. Are these worth trying out at all, or is it, it's a similar kind of size and weight and heft to the two Russian lenses already mentioned?
Perry, have you tried one of these?
No.
No, I know the lens, and I've come across that lens a few times, and I was having I don't know, I'm not sure if I was chatting to Nasir, because just briefly, yesterday I was at the Wolverhampton Camera Fair, and Nasir Hamed came up and had a chat with me, and that's somebody I've mentioned Nasir's name, and Graeme knows Nasir because
I know Nasser. I think he's a relation.
Not Hussein, not Nasser Hussein, Nasser Hamed, and because that was who you were with when you got shouted at taking the
exactly. I blame him entirely.
Yeah, well, there's just as an aside actually that. I've been talking to this chap for about 2 years, and I only actually realised it was Nasir yesterday when he mentioned, like he'd commented on Twitter or something that I said, and he goes, "What's your name?" Because I didn't actually know. I've never known what his name was. He goes, "I'm Nasir Hamed." I thought, it was just absolutely bizarre. It was, this person that I've known, I now know him, and I already knew him before. So it was a really, really weird event there, but. And I've completely lost my train of thought now. What was I about to talk about there? Because there was something relevant.
The Tamron lens, was it relevant?
That was it. Once upon a time, I would, whatever lens that would come into my possession, that I would be dying to get it onto my camera, and just to see what it did. Because back in the early days, I'll be just like amazed that a lens would be even capable of taking a photograph that wasn't designed for the camera. This was back when I was doing things on Micro Four Thirds, and especially things like the old Jupiters. I think they'll just look so ridiculous and amazing at the same time. It just encouraged me to try all these wacky and weird things. So it wouldn't really matter what the lens was. I just want to get it onto my camera and just try it out, just in case it's like some kind of grail lens that's going to just do something amazing for me. But as I'm now professionally involved with camera equipment, and I've tried so many lenses in the past, and so many lenses you can almost like predict what that lens is going to be like because you've tried so many similar lenses and you've not heard about this lens saying anything remarkable. Well, I just don't try everything anymore now, and that's one of those lenses that I've come across on a few times. I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be okay. It's going to do pictures. It's probably all right on film. I probably wouldn't shoot slide film with it, and it's going to be a bit, it's going to be pretty much soft until it's probably stopped down to within an inch of its life if I put it onto digital. And that is my take on that lens. Having never used it, I reckon that'll be what it's like.
That's good to know. Better to do that than waste the roll of film finding out.
Yeah. You can always try and put it onto your Fuji and just, give it a look.
Yeah.
Because you might be, it might be that Grail lens, which is actually, it's the next trial plan that everybody's going to start paying £500 for.
Yeah, that'd be convenient. I've got a couple more. I've got a couple more things I want to ask you about. These are more, because I've got more lenses, but I think we talked enough about very specific things. But this one is so. Lyndon from Londonian Cameras, who I know you've had on here in the past. Last year, I was down visiting him, collecting some cameras, and he gave me a lens. Very kindly gave me a lens because it's quite scuffed. I think it's safe to say that it might not be in A1 top mint plus.
It's a user.
Condition. Yeah, and it is a Nikon 105 2.5 mil lens. No, f2.5 105 mil lens, that way around. And that was fantastic, except I didn't have a Nikon body. So then my friend, aforementioned friend Alex, very kindly gave me a Nikon f301 body to use it on. But I'm not sure what's going on with the metering or not metering of this. So I was using this last weekend, and I don't know what this lens is doing with regards to the body that it's talking to or not talking to, because no adjustments I make on the aperture is changing the meter reading. Is there something that I can do to change that, or do I just have to ignore that? And what's happening?
I was going to say, before Perry says something, we're in this Hangouts chat, and you can tell when somebody's muted. And when where the mic is open, and Johnny's mic has been muted forever now, and Perry's mic was muted, and as soon as you said Nikon 105 2.5, it went straight off mute, just ready to talk.
I was pouring myself a beverage. I didn't want to make noise of liquids.
So Perry, I think we've got some things that we might want to say on this, but I'll let you.
Well, I was going to ask him which version he has.
Yeah.
Because that would explain the metering coupling.
Okay. Well, you're going to need to tell me how I can tell you what version I've got.
Yeah, sure. Does it have silver bits on it?
Yes, it has the has a silver thing just in front of the aperture reading, and the nose of it is silver.
Okay, yeah. So you have the early non-AI sonar version, which optically is the good version. I have 3 of these lenses. I don't know why, but I think Simon can better explain the actual impact on the cameras, because it confuses me every time.
Well, I was going to say, we do actually. I just need to put a disclaimer in there when I said, like, when you've just said that the sonar is the best optical version of this lens.
Oh, sorry.
That's our opinion.
No, it's the worst one optically, but that makes it the best.
Yeah, we like it the most, but it's a sonar variant, and we always like sonar variants of everything. But I think I really do think we need to actually hand this one over to Johnny, because he is a world-renowned expert on Nikon and loves to talk about Nikon whenever possible.
So you know what's really funny about this? I've been gone for like the past 5 minutes because I just had to go for a bathroom break and fill up my my ginger juice. So as soon as I get back, Simon says he's introducing me to talk about something. So,
okay, it's which body was it again, Graeme?
So it's a Nikon f301, and It's got this non-AI 105 millimeter. Whatever it is.
That's it. So, well, there you go. There may be a problem with the metering and mounting this lens on the camera, Johnny.
Wait, it's a
pre-AR.
A Nikon F3?
F301.
301.
F301.
It's one of the weird plastic thingies.
It's one of the autofocus ones, isn't it? The 301. Is that an autofocus one?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking it up really quick. I can't tell the 3 and 4 digit.
It's not autofocus.
No, it's all of these 3 and 4 digit Nikons that were made in like the 80s through 90s, just kind of like all mushed together. Yeah, for me,
I'm pretty sure that's an autofocus one.
301? No.
No, I'm looking at the wiki right now. It is a manual focus auto exposure film camera, auto film loading and advancing.
It looks just the same as like the first generation of the Nikon autofocus lenses, autofocus cameras. But
basically, yes. Yeah. So The F301 is notable for being the first Nikon SLR sold that lacked a film advance lever. So
Yeah, it's good. It makes a fun noise.
So,
Makes
Simon,
me
you're
think of
probably,
the Duran Duran movie.
Simon, you're probably confusing it with the F501.
No, I am, and the 701. I can just remember that range of cameras coming out, but I didn't actually realise they did a non-autofocus version with that. That body.
Yeah, so that lens is going to be a problem on this camera. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that because I highly doubt that they put the button on the lens mount so that you could mount non-AI lenses on that camera.
So would I? Because so the problem I've been having is that as I've been looking through and I've been adjusting the aperture, it hasn't been changing the meter reading. But
No.
I've just been hoping that when I press the shutter button, it's going to close it down.
It's not going to do a damn thing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, it's not going to do a damn thing. There's no aperture linkage between the two. The only way it's going to work is if you manually turn the aperture to the working aperture you want to use for your shot. So the camera is not going to control the aperture.
But there's no way of doing that, is there, on these lenses? You can't, because there's not a manual button like there is on the M42 lenses.
Can you force it by like taking it off the camera? Does that work?
Now I'm confused now.
Am I just talking crap? There's no way to make it actually stop down on the camera?
So I thought it would stop down anyway. It does stop down, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you turn the aperture ring, it'll close the aperture. The problem is you may or may not be able to successfully mount that lens on the camera without damaging the camera and or the lens. Because, Nikons are highly compatible with each other. All Nikon lenses go on all Nikon cameras.
I mean, it's just kind of fitting on here fine.
It'll fit on there and it won't work right.
Right. So the chances are that the roll of film I've got through here is probably going to all be shot wide open.
Wide open. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, at least I know that now, and I can make choices based around that.
So I thought that you would actually damage that little tab that's on the mount.
You probably will.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably will.
So you may have actually broken your camera anyway.
Well, no, the lens, it all seems to. There's little buttons here. I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to persevere because this is the first Nikon that I've ever had in my hands. And also the only Nikon lens I have for it. So we're going to see this through to the bitter end, one way or the other.
The bitter end may have already happened. That's the concern. It's just not compatible with that camera.
Right, because as you said, I thought the whole thing with the Nikon stuff is that it's all supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a big fat lie. Yeah, that's a big fat lie that the Nikon people in their little Nikon bubble like to believe.
Okay, which thing is it most likely I've broken, the lens or the camera or both?
Probably the camera.
Okay, well, sad. What camera could I get to use that lens on? What would be What would be the cheapest way for me to get a Nikon body to try that lens with?
That'd be a nickel matte of some description, I would guess.
Yeah, you get a nickel matte.
Okay, cool.
There's loads of those out there. Nobody wants them.
Cool beans.
Am I wrong? Knicker matte lovers, please write us and tell us how much you love your knicker matte. Because I can't give the damn things away where I work. I can't give them away. I can't. If I threw them at someone, I'd hurt them. So I can't throw them at people. So
they're so cheap here as well. No one wants them.
Okay.
Nobody wants them.
Okay, well, I'll look into that next.
Yeah, get a knicker matte that nobody wants really cheap.
Great lens.
Yeah, and it's actually a great camera. It's just a freaking dinosaur. I mean, in the worst way.
All right, I've got one more question for you guys, but before I move on to that, should we do some more haikus?
Haiku, sure.
Don't you think we should hear from our sponsors before we do some more haikus?
Yeah. Let's hear our sponsor's message, Johnny.
Well, as everyone may know, the Classic Lenses podcast is sponsored by Jeppson's Malort. Jeppson's Malort being, of course, the bitter Swedish schnapps liqueur made here in Chicago is a full-bodied flavor with unusual botanical, and its bitter taste is savored by two-fisted drinkers everywhere. So we want to thank Jeppson's Malort for sponsoring Classic Lenses podcast. And you know, that unique taste. Everybody has their own thoughts on what it tastes like. But every time you drink a Jeppson's Alert, you are striking a blow for freedom. So I think you know, have a Jeppson's Alert. It tastes like Trump spray tan at an impeachment hearing.
This is where we do the disclaimer that sponsor's message was not endorsed in any way by the Jeppson's company.
No, not yet.
Only a matter of time with that quality.
Only a matter of time.
Okay, so back onto the haiku.
I think you should read this email from Albert Strauss, Simon.
Oh,
because it's long.
It's far too long for me. So let's hand that one back over to our professional reader, Johnny, who's just put the mute on.
I just put mute on. I was like, oh, great! Now I don't have to pay attention again. Where are we? Oh, Albert Strauss. Okay, Albert Strauss. I'm going to read. I guess he wrote a preamble to his haiku.
Yes.
Okay,
And a postamble.
And a postamble, yeah. Okay, so Albert Strauss says, "Dear Classic Lenses team, I only knew that a haiku consists of 3 lines. First, it became a bit clearer after reading about it, but the more you read, the more confused you get. There does not seem to be rules on what a haiku really is." Perry's like losing it over there. "Also, the rules regarding the amount of syllables is just a rough recommendation. Some say there has to be a hint of the season/time in it. Some definitions say that is not necessary. Some say there has to be a contrast in the meaning of the word. Some say that is not important. Some say it is not allowed to rhyme. Some say that it can rhyme if it fits. After all this confusion, here is my first and probably last haiku. Angles of view, wide, narrow. Make some... I got to start over. Angles of view, wide, narrow. Some make you blue, some might strike you."
Is he writing about the police in Hong Kong?
Maybe he is. So and then he goes on in the postamble. He goes on to say, "If it helps, here is a bit of interpretation why I have chosen these words. So Perry, you're about to find out. Although I'm not sure if that is the true meaning of haiku really allowed. The aspect of time, strike, blue strike, think blue color and Hong Kong. Now you've got a link to the show and to our current times of the clash of angles of view / systems, etc. But it might also mean the feeling of blue as contrast to something that strikes you in a positive or negative way as it evokes feelings. Angles of view could also refer to wide and tele. Now you've got the link to photography and also your discussion regarding perspectives. As a side note, Simon is wrong, Perry is right, but I don't want to open that box again. If that all causes confusion, don't forget that you have asked us to write such a thing as a haiku, so the confusion might be intentional. Best wishes and keep up the great work, Albert."
So I really like this one. He put a lot of thought into it, and even though it's 744 syllables, yeah, so he's broken all the rules. But you know what?
Well, that might well be part of, you know, he's clearly knows more about these haikus than any of us by what he's actually just written there.
Albert's done his homework. You know, I'm gonna shoot people on the street. He can do a 744 haiku. You do you. I like this one a lot.
Pretty good. Well, if Perry says it's okay, then it's okay by me.
Also, Simon, did you actually end up writing to your own other show about perspective?
We did touch upon it, and it
that's the correct sound to make. Let's move on.
Yes.
I'm going to read the next one. This is from Andy Clement again. People love writing these haikus. You know what I think? I think people should just keep sending you haikus because they clearly enjoy it. Just keep sending them into the Classic Lenses podcast. They will always read them.
That's going to get bleeped.
So, okay, here we go. What lens should I use? Because of that podcast, can't sell any.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's the same one.
That is the same one, isn't it? Why did you put that one? Keep
early.
reading, Simon. I mean, you literally put. Oh God,
that's why I put again on there.
And it's still not got the right number of syllables in it. Okay, I'm gonna have another go.
Same one.
Yeah, exactly the same one. Simon, you're fired. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to read the next one then, because it's just nuts to you guys. This is from Sammy Rifat. Sorry, Sammy. This one is a new one. Top mint +++ in beautiful condition. Has some tiny dusts. That seems very relevant for you guys. I like tiny dusts.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's certainly one of my favourite phrases that ever came out of the show, especially when Carl would say it. It was just a special way that you would actually say that phrase.
Sometimes you get one remarkable dust.
Yeah.
We've got a couple more right down the bottom that aren't from Paul Friday, because then we're going to say the Paul Friday monster of haikus. But should we do the last couple that aren't from Paul Friday first?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll do the next one. This is from James Cleveland, who listeners, it's all James's fault. Because we like the idea of poetry, and then he came up with the idea of doing haiku. So it's only fitting that he actually got round to actually writing one for us as well. But I think he did it as a joke, and we took it up. Okay, so creamy rendering. Actually, was that meant to be? No. There's sorry. It doesn't help being dyslexic, and then I've actually not actually put these on the right line. So let's
No. He's doing on Jean Beaumont. It's all good. Carry on. Yeah.
Okay, that word. So I still better start again. I'll read it as it's down here, which is probably wrong. Creamy rendering divides all seek, but few find. The sublime Uftar.
Simon, you live in England. Did you never study English literature?
Yeah.
When you read a poem with enjambment, if the punctuation carries on to the next line, you just keep going and read it as normal. Flow with the haiku.
No matter how many times you say enjambment, none of us are going to know what you're talking about, Perry. Repeating it isn't going to help.
Yes.
But you carry on. Okay, Johnny, do you want to take this last one from Rakesh Nar?
He has two.
Oh, there you go. You got two.
Wait, we jumped down.
Right to the bottom.
We jumped down right to the bottom? Okay,
right to the bottom.
Oh, okay. All right. Can I read this whole bit here?
Well, there was just an edit, and there's an editor's note in there.
Oh, there's an editor's note.
That's it. That was there for Graeme's benefit to
right.
So he could just like come out with words of wisdom as if, oh, that's impressive how he knew that, and but we've seemed to have gone away from that.
Right. Okay. Well, Rakeshnar says a couple of my haiku efforts for the lens challenge. Hopefully, I've not missed the cutoff. Apparently, you've not missed the cutoff.
Well,
because
he
we're
did,
about to read
but
them.
we did. But seeing that
okay.
Rakesh is a bit special for us, isn't he?
You did miss the cutoff, but we're going to read them anyway. Yeah, so to go with the haiku, maybe there's rules, maybe there's not thing. We're just going to
Rakesh has a buy on this one. I don't know if that will actually know if that means anything to anybody outside of the UK, but and that's that he was the person behind the Gear Acquisition Monkeys T-shirt.
Yes.
That came out as a result of an insult by Graeme on the Sunny16 podcast about us. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, we love Rakesh.
Yeah, so I guess he has two here. One is an official entry, and one is just kind of his mucking about, I guess. Yeah. So I'll read them both. The first one is Classic Lenses Podcast. Mounting on mirrorless was simple. Now a gateway to film. All right, so that was his warm up. Here is his official entry, haiku. Gear Acquisition Monkeys. eBay hell awaits you now. Top mint equals shit.
That's a definite contender.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely
775 though.
And you didn't even jambalaya it, so whatevs.
I thought we've now established that if it conforms to the correct terminology, it's now wrong.
I think as long as it's got 3 lines, I'm happy with it. Yeah. And as judged, my word is final. before we tackle Paul Friday's, or some of Paul Friday, we're not reading all of yours, Paul, because holy muckmoly. But I have one last question. Whilst I've got the three of you lens brains on here, I have one last lens-related question I would like to ask you. So my favoured 35mm camera system of choice is the Olympus OM system. I love my Olympus. I've got an OM1, I've got some OM10s. I really enjoy using them. And I've got the basic lenses. So I've got the 50mm 1.8. I've got the not so great 135mm 3.5 and the 28 2.8. So just like a real basic set. But this is the camera system that I most like using. And if I'm going to buy a lens again, it's going to be for that system. And I'd like your advice on what would be a good lens to add to those three to give me something more. The one that I've looked at in the past was the 21mm 3.5. I think I might be misremembering, but within reason on the budget. I can't spend super massive amounts of money, so it needs to be not the super high end one. But I also appreciate that anything beyond those three is not going to be super cheap either. So
sure, yeah.
What advice can you give me?
Well,
just repeat one more time the three you have, because I missed the second one. I got 51.8.
I've got the 135 3.5 and I've also got an Elicar an Elicar 2.8, which I think is just some random. But it's quite nice.
What focal length is the Elicar?
That's 135mm as well.
Yeah, that's a decent lens.
Really?
I didn't think I'd ever hear that name again, but I've tried one of those, and it was pretty damn excellent. You might want to just, if you ever feel like put them onto your Fuji and just trying the two against each other. I think you'll be quite surprised about how good that lens is.
Yeah, I mean, I have shot a roll with that one, and I have to say, out of the two rolls of film that I've shot with 135mm, I did prefer the stuff from the other car. It had more character to it. The 3.5 Olympus one, it was okay, but it was just it didn't do anything for me. So okay, that's good to know. So yeah, and just the 2.8 28mm, just those ones are the only ones I've got so far.
Well, I am I the biggest Olympus fan here?
I really like my OM1.
Okay, all right. So Perry, you want to?
I like the lenses more than the cameras.
Okay, so we're all somewhat on the spectrum of Olympus fandom.
You should go first, though.
I should go first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because,
all right. Yeah. All right. Well, so Olympus and Minolta are my two. Well, they're the only two SLR systems I am retaining. I don't really shoot SLRs much anymore, but I keep those because they're excellent. And if I want to use them, I still want to have them around. So I am also a big Olympus fan, especially the OM2. And I mean, you already have, the 51.8's a great lens. The 28s are nice. So I guess my thought would be, well, I had two or three lenses come to mind. Certainly the 21mm 3.5 is excellent. That would give you a bit of difference from the 28mm. It's going to be, right. It's going to be noticeably wider.
Significantly.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, I would say the 24mm 2.8 is really, really a great lens, but it's going to be very similar to your 28. So I'd probably say, go right for the 21. If you want to go crazy, the other one would be, of course, the 40mm f2. So there's a lens I would love to have that lens and don't have it. So
what's so special about that lens?
Well, it's 40mm, isn't it?
Oh, right. Of course, yes. Sorry, silly me. It's not 50mm, therefore more special. Yeah,
this being the special 40mm giveaway show. I mean, this lens would be a fine contrast, I think, to the.
No, go
Perry's,
on. Perry,
go for it, Perry.
Well, I was just going to say, Graeme requested a relatively budget lens, right?
Right. That's why I was saying go crazy, right? That's not going to be a budget lens, nor would the 55mm 1.2 be a budget lens. So, but I would say the other one you could look at would be a 100mm 2.8.
Or the f2.
Well, yeah. But again, budget. Thinking budget.
Yeah.
We're just recommending him the most expensive one.
None of these lenses are going to be very cheap. So
I don't know that yeah. I mean, all of them are going to be a little on the pricey side.
Yeah. I mean, is there any good reason to look at the... bear in mind, I've already got the 51.8. Is the 51.4 worth looking at? Is it much of an upgrade, or would I be better off if I really want to get a faster 50mm, saving up all of the money and getting a 1.2?
Well,
okay.
on this, aren't we?
So I can speak a little bit maybe from experience, because I think all of those lenses mentioned. I have the 55, the 55 or the 50. I have the 51.2, and I have the 51.4, and I have the 51.8, and I think the only advantage, I would have to look at the lenses again to double check this, because I get them confused with my Minoltas. But to me, the one big advantage of the 51.4, I hope I'm saying this right and I'm not thinking of the Minolta, is that when you shoot a 51.8, right, it has 1.8, and then the next click stop on the aperture is 2.8, right? Now, if you get a 1.4, it has a click stop at f2, and I find that as a usability thing is really nice. So, to me, the one advantage would be the clicked f-stop at f2. Because really, really, to me, f2 is like, the widest usable aperture on a faster than 1.8 lens, right? So the 51.4, I'm not really going to shoot at 1.4, and the f1.2, I'm not going to shoot at 1.2. I'm going to maybe shoot it at 1.4, but I'm probably going to shoot all of them at f2. So to me, that's just a usability thing. It's nice to have a click stop between the widest aperture and 2.8.
They also look quite different in the way they render wide open if you have bokeh balls in the background, especially. Because the 51.4 OM, it does something that not that many other lenses do, where I don't know how to describe it. Like towards the edges, the hard edge of the bokeh ball, it points towards the center of the frame.
Yes,
which then softens as it fades out.
Yes.
And there are a couple lenses that do that, but not too many, and it's a pretty cool look.
Yeah, and Carl famously was to me, Carl was the master of the 51.4 OM. Of course, he was not the master of finding ones without fungus. He was the master of finding bad ones.
So a lot of Olympus lenses I think most of the 50mm 1.8s I've come across have got a bit of fungus in them.
Yeah, they tend to be magnets. And in my understanding of the 51.8 is that the front block is sealed, so it's not like you could get in there and clean it either. But they tend to be fungus magnets. But I'm with Perry on this. Carl used to take these shots, even on his Micro Four Thirds stuff. He used to take shots with the 51.4 that would have that beautiful, I call it like a scalloped bokeh, because Perry did a great description of it. It's like the bokeh, the balls on the outside, you see the roundness, but then it kind of fades out in the middle, so they don't make circles. They make like half moons.
Yes.
Right? They make sort of half moons pointing towards the center of the frame, towards the center of the lens. And I think it's a really, really nice look. And I'm with Perry on that. It's a unique looking rendering wide open. And for that reason, it might be nice to have that lens.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that look too.
And they're not stupid expensive, are they? The one?
No.
No. There's quite a lot of those out there. Cool. Thank you very much for your help with that, because that is kind of the only thing that I ever look at. I think it'd be nice to get some more lenses for this system.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I was going to say, can I have a go, please?
all right.
And I just talking about the 51.4. Actually, there was just a point then that Johnny made about fungus. The fungus is okay if it's in the front elements. It's when it's at the back of the lens is when it disaster strikes. Because getting the rear elements is an absolute nightmare on those things, whether it be the 1.8 or the 1.4. And I think that's the reason why Carl gave up on trying to fix lenses actually because of that lens. But a couple of things there. There's a couple of versions as well, because you got the older style, which have got like a chrome ring on the front, and which we call those chrome noses. The later ones that don't have that, we don't call them black nose. We just don't call them anything. It's just if you've got the chrome there, it's a chrome nose. And there's a difference between the lenses, not necessarily optically. I don't think there's a difference optically, but certainly there's a difference in coatings. And actually, Olympus are a bit of a funny one this time, because some of their lenses you're never quite sure whether it's single coated or multi coated as well. And you think, well, does that really matter? In some respects, it doesn't, but it depends on just how nerdy you want to get and how obsessive you want to get. But I've certainly experienced a difference in contrast and the overall look of the out of focus areas between identical lenses, whether they be silver nose or the conventional ones. And the silver noses just tend to lack a little bit of contrast, which is pretty much what you would expect with a lesser going on in the way of coatings there. But sometimes that can be more attractive in the out of focus areas. The other thing about the 51.4, I've never used one on full frame, but I used one a lot on Micro Four Thirds. And again, I also went through a phase of comparing all different 51.4 lenses, and it was probably one of the weaker lenses in terms of outright sharpness, and the out of focus area could sometimes be quite, I would describe as uncouth at times. But there are other times where that thing that can be a little bit dodgy, in the right circumstances, it could produce something that's quite unique as well. And uniqueness is something that, was classic lens users and the ones that those of us that like to have a lens for a reason and therefore justify its space in the cupboard or on the shelf. Then that lens can deliver something that's quite different from anything else. So I think that's a big thumbs up for that lens. In terms of other lenses out there, just from a practical point of view, you've got 28 covered, 50 mils covered, and then there's a big gap between 50 and 135. And it's not a cheap lens, but there's a great lens that goes into that gap. And you've already mentioned the 100 2.8, which is not particularly expensive, and that's a decent solid lens. Mm-hmm. But the 85 f2, which has been steadily going up in price as these things do, that's an excellent lens. It's possibly the smallest 85mm fastish lens out there, and it's a lovely handling lens. In fact, it feels barely bigger than the 51.4. It feels like it's almost the same size as it. It's a little bit longer, but it's got exactly the same feel. And I think that's one of the things about Olympus lenses. I think they feel great. I think few lenses feel as solid as these Olympus OM lenses. And
really,
yeah, I love the feel of.
I like them. I
love
too.
that focus ring. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
No, I like them as well. That's the one I would put that as their weakest point compared to other stuff I've got.
Right.
Well, they're definitely not as solid feeling as your run-of-the-mill Takamar, I would say. But they're, and I think that's largely down to that large rubberized focus ring, right? As opposed to like the an all metal scallop focus ring or something.
Yeah.
But
even the aperture rings feel a little bit loose, and
Yeah.
But that there will be so really just to answer the thing that it just seems like unless you wanted to go wide, and you've already alluded to the much wider. I mean, actually, we talked about saying there's not much of a difference between 24 and 28. There's a
huge difference.
Yeah, so that in itself is you might actually head for a 24 and ditch the 28, and then you might end up edging yourself more towards say the 100 as well, maybe.
Okay.
Wait, can I jump in with one other reco here? Because Johnny's already brought up the 55 1.2 and 40 f2, so we're kind of out of the budget range. The 21mm f2 is a lens that brings it makes me weak to the knees because fast ultra wides are just so damn sexy, and that one is not gigantic. It's
I need to put that one on my bucket list.
I want that lens. This whole conversation, when you guys have been talking, I've just been looking at this lens online. I mean, just like slap it on a camera, stick some Cinestill in there, go out at night and get up close to people. Oh my God, it'll be so nice. You can zone focus it.
Actually,
there's also
I was just going to say that's another quick thing about Olympus lenses. There's almost like a premium. There are some premium lenses within the Olympus range.
That one for sure.
Yeah, you've just mentioned that one. Another one that comes to mind, which I own, is the 100mm f2, which is phenomenal.
There's a 24mm f2 made by Vivitar, right, in OM Mount, which doesn't suck.
Yeah,
that's not expensive at all.
But I mean, the 2.8 is it's less expensive and it's really good. So
it's a good solid lens, the 28 2.8 Zuiko or Zuiko, if that's right. But I mean, I remember having a chat to a friend of mine, Andy Cottrell, and he used to have a 28 2.8, and he back in the day, and he described it as the best lens he'd ever had in his life. And he sold it for whatever reason, but when he went away from film, I guess, and now he regrets that, because he's had several of those since, and he's never actually had one that's ever been as good as that one that he sold. So there's a potential for sample variation going on there. That's what it sounds like to me.
But listen to this, man. The 21mm f2, 11 elements, 9 groups, 20 centimeters close focus, right? 250 grams, 43 millimeters long. Oh, come on. Come on.
Is that what you're going to be giving away for the next competition?
I think I'm going to buy one for myself.
What's the going rate on one of those then, Perry?
eBay sold prices are like, the cheapest one I'm seeing is, what is that in? Do you guys want it in pounds? Like 450 pounds?
Yeah, go with that.
Yeah, about 450 pounds.
All right.
Oh, that's not terrible. That's
not bad.
That's better than I thought it was going to be. Well, thank you very much for your advice on that, gentlemen. I think, because I know that you guys need to get off. I don't know why I'm saying this, because it's not my goddamn podcast. But somebody's got to be in charge here, apparently. I think we need to wrap up these haikus, don't we? Which means that we need to tackle Paul Friday's mountain of haiku.
Yes.
So are we going to pick a couple of these each to read out before we read out his? Yeah. I'm going to. No, we're all going to pick a couple of these each to read out. Okay. So these are kind of broken down into 3 sections. Paul's broken them down into wind up and parodies of other podcasts and podsters, and then there's just his general ones, and then there's his competition entry. So there's so many of these. So many.
Well, there's one there that seems to be gagging for me to read out. So I'll go first with this one, and that's baiting the McGill. With a fumbling perspective. How could he object?
I think the thing we should say about all of Paul's is that Paul has integrated a lot of puns into his haikus, which I think might be a crime. I
don't understand that one at all.
McGill is one of the many names that people refer to Hamish Gill.
Okay, got it.
That's it, and it raises his perspective, his blood pressure whenever I talk about perspective, which is a reason why I'm trying not to talk about it, just to save him.
Yeah, I'm from Canada, so I hear McGill and I think of the university. I was like, what's going on?
Okay, I'm going to take this one. Let's see if we can figure out which podcast this one's referring to. APS, he says, taking the whole world by storm. We all laugh weekly.
It's the hottest trend in film photography. and actually, on that note, one of the reasons why we're slightly pushed for time is because as soon as we finished here, I'm co-captaining, that's the correct phrase, the Negative Positives podcast with Mike, and we have Ted Smith as our guest. So that's actually going to be recording in less than an hour from here. So, oh dear, I'm just to go along with how that podcast works, I'm going to be breaking out some bourbon, I think, just to get me through it.
Perry, have you got a pick?
Yeah, there's one from his. This is just from the first chunk, right? Mm-hmm.
Or from wherever.
Okay, I like this one. Fup duck photo guy puts cameras in water. Wonders why broken.
Johnny, have you got a pick?
No, I really don't.
Okay, well, seeing as this one seems very much aimed at me, I'm gonna go with this one. Ya go, you go, yet not Yago or Dayglow. We mangle your worms. Yep, I think that sums up how well you did with my surname.
Yeah, I nearly did it again at the start of this show for some reason.
Go on, Simon. You pick another one.
Let's see. Mike G and Graham, bookends of sunburned hunkdom.
Hunkdom, not hunkdom. That makes it sound like an S&M club.
It does, doesn't it? We are not worthy. I have very little idea what on earth was going on with that.
So I have one here that I think describes the customers that Johnny talks about when he describes old people who go into his shop to tell him that film is dead. All right. Our thin hair turns gray. Autofocus supports us, and gas becomes sag.
Okay, good. One last one before we hit his official entry, just to show how bad the puns are in this. Female pirate pics. Who is this pretty model? She tells me, Tess R. Yeah, exactly. Oh no.
Yeah, and Graham, that was going to be the one that I was actually going to say would be my pick. Would be that one.
Well, I'm glad we got it in, Johnny. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I mean, Johnny, do you want to read his official entry?
Does he have an official entry?
It's right down the. It's the one. It's the one at the bottom before his bonus.
Oh, okay. Yes, I see it here. Paul Friday's official entry. Okay, here we go. I got to make sure I can read these 3 lines separate and not all together in that fancy way that Perry says we should do it. So, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Backed up by paper. Cheerful triple exposure. Meterless thumb rule.
I prefer the Tessar.
Yeah,
No.
Tessar.
Okay, well, we'll redesign that one as Paul's official entry. It's the Tess R. And I think that's all of them, isn't it, that we're going to read? Because there's many more from Paul. Will you be sharing these in your show notes?
Yeah. Why not? Why not? We can copy and paste this along with the errors. No problem at all. Yeah.
So people can go there and read all of them. There are some really good ones in there, but there's just many of them.
Yeah, we don't actually count our page hits that we get. I just wonder if they're actually going to go down this week or not. Right. Okay. So thank you everybody for your entries and the varying quality of them. So we still haven't talked about how we're going to actually pick a winner from this. Graham, you're sort of the most judgmental person. So any thoughts on that, or do you just want to go ahead and pick a winner? Yeah, I think it's probably going to be too difficult to do second and third and all that kind of stuff. Do you want to pick one that?
Okay, I'm just going to. I think they're all. I really appreciate the effort that everyone's put in. I think they're all good, even the ones that were all over the map in terms of the number of words and stuff. I think they're all good. Ones that have stuck out to me, I really like Rakesh's entry on the gear acquisition monkeys. I like that one a lot. A Tess R is obviously that's terrible, but also great. What else did we come across? Albert Strauss's that was very good. I think he very much the meaning he squeezed into that. I really like that. And the other one, which was fairly early on, where are we? From Bernard Sperling. I also like that one. This is very difficult. But I think I'm going to go for the one which has kind of stuck with me a bit, just because it kind of, when I think about what haikus theoretically is supposed to be of kind of conveying a sense of place and feeling, the one that kind of has done it most actually is that one I mentioned, the early one, Bernard Sperling's, which was cold break of the day, an old flat Konica sings beyond the Leica. There's something I like that. I don't know why, but that is the one that stuck in my mind. So, but for no better reason than that, that's the one that I'm going to choose as being the winner of this competition.
All right.
That's a good choice. It makes you feel like you're in nature, even though he's talking about lenses.
Yeah. There's just something poetic about it, which is obviously what you're looking for in a haiku.
Sweet.
Well, that's brilliant. And Bernard, Bernard, if
both of you,
yes, actually, there's two different spellings of. Oh, I wonder if I just copied it incorrectly. There you go. But we're not going to announce this in publicly. It's going to be when you've listened to the podcast. Hopefully, you will. Get in touch with us, and you already know how to get in touch with us because you already sent an email to us. So just drop us a line, and then we'll make the arrangements to get your lens over to you from Hong Kong. So well done, Bernard.
Or Bernard.
Congratulations.
Or Bernard. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, I'm just thinking we are a little bit short on time on this show, so I think unless somebody's got anything that they really want to get off their chests.
Can we talk about street photography?
Yeah, can we open that up again?
Sorry about that, guys.
I feel like we're going to have to get Eric on so we can do a right of reply to the reply. Right, okay. So, Graeme, thank you very, very much for coming back. Having been on here once, and you've come back within 2 weeks. So, well done, you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for all of the information and advice you guys have given me. It's been hugely helpful.
That's it. Well, we've wanted to get you on the show for absolutely ages. So, and I've got to say, the suggestion of the haiku competition was actually the trigger. We can get Graeme on now. So that's great. So thank you for that. So we'll come back to you in a minute where people can catch up with you and stuff. But I'm going to go over to Perry. If you've got anything else to say, any shout-outs or anything like that, or alternatively, perhaps if you'd like to tell people how people can follow you outside of this podcast.
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr at PerryG. I also have a website that I never update, but it's just perryg.com.
Okay, and Johnny?
I actually have a couple shout-outs this week that I've remembered to actually include in this week's episode. So I want to give a shout-out to Christopher May, who is now living again in the Chicago area. So he's a local guy now. And we want to say congratulations to Christopher May because he's now married. So Christopher May,
excellent, in
Chicago area and married. Welcome back. Thanks for stopping in to say hi at Central Camera the other day. And then I have a very special shout out for the one and only Big Mike. So Big Mike, I guess I think Simon knows who Big Mike is. We all had to ask, who's Big Mike? And Simon's like, Big Mike.
Aloha, Big Mike from Hawaii. Everybody knows Big Mike.
Aloha, Aloha, Big Mike from Hawaii. So Big Mike was kind enough to send me an actual through the mail physical postcard at Central Camera, and it has a beautiful picture of some palm trees on the front, and it's a very nice photograph on a very nice postcard with a very nice note on the back, which I will now read for everyone to hear. So Big Mike says, "Aloha from Hawaii. Thought I'd send in some classic lenses listener mail the old-fashioned way on a 5x7 Ilford fiber-based classic matte darkroom print that I made. Podcast number 83, when you and Mike talked about hot dogs and beef, was my favorite to date. Got me dreaming of my hometown and hungry for a visit. Aloha, Big Mike."
Can I just say, I too have that exact print sent to me by Mike Caputo. That guy is a goddamn delight, and I think everybody is following him. Everybody should be. He sometimes does stories where he just sings show tunes. Also, he's a burly fireman hunk. I mean, he's got it all going on. He's the man we all want to be. I love Mike Caputo. So yeah, Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike.
Did yours have the same message on it, Graeme?
Yeah, it said, love the Classic Lenses podcast. I love the bit where you talked about snacks and stuff.
And we should also say that Big Mike has impeccable handwriting. Like, I guess apparently they don't teach kids how to handwrite stuff anymore because you can just text everything now and you don't need to write anything. But he has impeccable handwriting. I haven't seen handwriting like this since, I don't know, I got a card from my grandmother. So it even has a really cool Apollo moon landing stamp on it. So the entire package was very thoughtful and it's much appreciated.
We also,
yeah. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we also and I shared it with you guys as well. We also had a message via. It was a direct message on Instagram from John Bruning, saying some very, very nice things about our show as well. So, which I've shared with the guys. I won't read it out now, but yeah, thanks for that one, John, as well. It's appreciated.
And I did, just to finish the wrap ups here. So you can keep up with me on Instagram at Cisco Photography. You can contact me, visit me, send me a postcard at Central Camera Company in Chicago. And of course you can send an email to the podcast at classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the podcast at our home, which is classiclensespodcast.com. And of course, make sure on Instagram you visit Best Vintage Lens. Friend of me of the show, make sure you get the weekly wrap-up or sort of weekly wrap-up from Ricardo about each episode. So check that out. And also, let's give a big shout-out again to our sponsor of the Classic Lenses Podcast. Classic Lenses Podcast, sponsored by Jeppson's Malord, the fine British Swedish schnapps made in Chicago.
There goes that sponsorship.
Classic Lenses Podcast, sponsored by Jeppson's Malord, the fine, bitter Swedish schnapps made in Chicago. Jeppson's Malord tastes like someone vomited up their gin, and now you're drinking it from a shoe.
And Graeme, how can people keep up with you outside of this podcast?
Well, the easiest place to find us is at Sunny16 Podcast. If you actually want to touch base with me, then I look after the Twitter side of things. The wonderful Matthew Joseph looks after Instagram, and he does a great job of looking after our Instagram feed. So you'll find him there. Rachel, I'm going to point people towards Rachel because I know Rachel's another one that's difficult to get on your podcast with regards to lenses, but Rachel's delight in that little vintage photography. You find her everywhere. But yeah, Twitter, Sunny16 Podcast, or I am on Instagram at myopic_me, and I'd say 50% of the pictures on that feed were taken with my Helios 35mm with the rear element flipped, so they're all completely blurry. So if that appeals to people who like really good quality lenses, which I can't imagine it will, but the more recent pictures have been taken with cameras that actually can focus on the thing, so that's there.
Right. Well, thank you again, Graeme. It's been great to have you on.
It's been an absolute pleasure and delight.
Excellent. And you just mentioned, actually, that's the point on Instagram. You just mentioned Matthew Joseph there, and there's a whenever you mention that name, that gets a certain level of confusion in my mind, because in our darkroom club, the 6 Towns Darkroom, on Instagram, we also have a Matthew Joseph, except it's got 2 underscores in there. Which is just really, besides, he's donated to us in the past, and I've said thank you to Matthew on coffee and stuff like that. And I was just wondering if the other Matthew Joseph had listened to that and thinking, I didn't send any money. Yeah, so yeah, that confuses me weekly. That does whenever you mention his name there. And seeing that I've just mentioned coffee, we've had some donations. I'll just find where it's gone. Oh, it's right in front of me. And so I just want to thank Mike Epstein and Barry Carr, who send us a regular amount of money, which is really, really nice of you. So thank you very much. And we also have a donation from Nigel Cliff, who's made a small contribution towards Simon's airfare to Kentucky. It got me a few miles down the road, so thank you for that, and I might even make it there later on in the next half an hour. So thank you, Nigel. And talking about Nigel, shout outs for me this week are, one is going to be Nigel Cliff, because I saw him yesterday. We had a good old chat. That was at the Wolverhampton Camera Fair. I also met a chap called Richard. Didn't get your surname, but it was nice talking to you, Richard. And as already mentioned earlier, I met NASA for the first and fifth time. So it was nice to actually know who I was actually talking to, and realising it was somebody I already knew. So that was great to meet you properly, Nasir. Okay, so other places for me, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. Yeah, Simon4. I'm on the Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. I've got an eBay shop where you can still buy those two items I was pushing last week, the baby Rolleiflex and that Ambi Select lens. And where else am I? I'm on Flickr, but I haven't done anything for ages. I think that'll pretty much do it, I think. So music is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. It's called Octo Blues, and that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed it this week. Well done to Bernard for winning that lens. Please get in touch with us, and we'll make the arrangements to get it over to you. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you can, be like Carl. Right, okay, because we're relatively short on time today.
Good thing all we need to do is read 85 frickin'...
Yeah.
Do you remember that time when you guys were taking the piss out of me and my podcast for having to describe photographs on it and how time-consuming and how stupid that was? Yeah. Karma's a bitch, isn't it,
eh? Not really, because we're getting you to do it.
Oh, good fuck.